Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a quick spin through the biggest topics in all of MMA. Half the team is coming to you live from Fight Island this week with myself and Mike Bohn in Abu Dhabi, while we've also got Nolan King in Boston and MMA Junkie Radio. Goze Garcia holding it down in Las Vegas. Let's not waste any more time. Guys, we've got 3 events coming up here in Abu Dhabi where fans will be in the building at the brand new Etihad Arena, but there's no question the featured matchup of all the cards is the rematch between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Now, future UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier came out and said mindset is going to be a big key for Poirier to win here, and that he's got to kind of just put it in his head that he got caught the first time around and put that behind him. Now, that comes on the heels of McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, saying, listen, the mindset's going to be massive here. There's no way Dustin can forget that first-round knockout the first time around. And Conor's even come out and said, listen, I'm going to do it better than I did the first time. We're talking about 60 seconds or less. So a lot of talk about mentality coming to this. So I want to ask you, the old cliche, of course, is styles make fights. But I wonder, should it be minds make fights? How big is the mental game here? Is that's what's going to make the difference? Let's talk about it. Let's put 3 minutes on the clock. Let's start with you, Goze.
Guys, I think this is huge, okay? It's not just the fans, it's not just the media that have made a big deal out of it. It's been Dustin himself. If you go back to that first fight and you hear him talk about what that fight meant to him and what he went through after that fight, it was a very, very big deal for him, okay? So it's something that he is going to have to get out of his head, but it's not just the memory of the last fight. It's what's going to happen on the island, right? When Conor McGregor gets a mic in front of him and he starts talking, it's going to add more fuel to the fire. Here's where I think people are missing the boat a little bit. It's not just Dustin Poirier that has to go through this. Khabib is going to be on that island too. And have you ever been to a party where your ex-girlfriend shows up? What do you do the whole night? You sit there and you look around and you're sitting there wondering where she's at. What is she doing? I think that's going to be a distraction for Conor McGregor as well. So I think on both sides, both guys are going to be dealing with this mental game. But in the end, they're professionals, and I think they're going to make it happen.
Interesting. I hadn't even really thought about that aspect of it. We think about Conor McGregor being such a master of the mental game. So, Mike, let's go to you. What say you? We're talking a lot about the physical development of these guys, the tactical evaluation of them. What about the mindset? I mean, is this going to be a big part of the game?
Absolutely. It's so definitive for Dustin Poirier in particular, too. I mean, Conor McGregor ripped him apart and wrapped him around his finger in that first fight, and it really made all the difference in the world there. And we know Conor's probably going to try to do that again. He's been very even keel so far, but I think when the fight week press conference arrives, he's going to definitely start trying to insert certain things into the mind of Dustin Poirier, and that's going to be very interesting to see how Dustin handles that. We've seen Dustin struggle with some of the stuff too. Even in the Khabib fight, he focused so much on the wrestling. And when he got in there, we saw what happened. He's getting pressed against the fence. He's telling his corner, I can't get this guy off me. So I think, Dustin Poirier for sure, in some of his losses, some of the big faltering moments in his career, it's being attributed to mindset. So he needs to be 100% right, but Conor McGregor is the king of that. So this is going to be the biggest, I think, underlying issue with this fight.
Yeah, interesting. We remember that moment in the Khabib fight. I hadn't thought about that, man. That was kind of a mental check there. So, Nolan, what do you think? I mean, who's got the edge here? And I mean, do we need to be giving this much credence to the mindset here, or does it ultimately just come down to punches and kicks and grappling and all that good stuff?
No, John. I think the mental game, we need to analyze it, especially with the way that the first fight went down, like Goze said. But it's interesting, right? Because Dustin's talked about this throughout his career, how that fight helped him improve his mental game throughout the rest of his career, that the matchups, since he went through the McGregor, I don't want to call it teasing or back and forth, that it made him stronger going forward. But there's something to be said, too, I wonder, about the anticipation that comes with the rematch. Like, this is the guy that got in my head last time. This is the guy that knocked me out and kind of embarrassed me a little bit in a pretty heated rivalry matchup a couple of years ago. So it will be interesting to see if that build, that anticipation, is able to chip away at the confidence and the mental game that Dustin has built since that first experience. But at the end of the day, it is punches and kicks, and I'm not ruling out that Poirier has solidified his mental game enough to beat Conor McGregor.
Tell you what, we got to solidify Nolan's mental game to cut it off at 3 minutes, dang it. Come on, watch the clock, respect the clock. I'll tell you what, guys, you know what? I am interested to see. I do wonder if the mentality is a little bit easier the second time you face Conor McGregor. Once you've been through the whole fiasco and the whole circus act, we'll see. I'm interested about it. But listen, that's the fight that everybody is talking about, of course, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier too. But before we get there, we've got an absolutely sensational featherweight main event on network television with Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. For Kattar, in my opinion, it's all upside, man. He's got a real chance to prove himself among the division's elite. But for Holloway, can you believe it's his first non-title fight since 2016? And it looks like it could be a crossroads fight, even though the guy's just 29 years old. So what do we think here? How much pressure here is on Max Holloway? Is this a quote-unquote must-win fight for the guy in his career moving forward? Mike Bohn, as a fellow Canadian, along with your adopted Toronto man there, I know you wanted to start this one off. So let's put 3 minutes on the clock. Have at him.
Yeah, it is a big moment for Max Holloway here. It's crazy to think if he loses this fight, he'll be 1-4 in his past 5. If you talk about the 2 losses to Volkanovski, the loss to Dustin Poirier at lightweight in the interim title bout. So yeah, if he wants to be the featherweight champion again, this is a really big must win. I don't think it's like a defining thing because I do think he has options. I think he could go back to 155 in the future and maybe do it the right way. With that Poirier fight, it came together on like 7 weeks notice. He didn't have the proper time to put the weight on, acclimate to that weight class. I could see if he maybe loses here, maybe take like 6 months to a year off, build up properly like we're seeing John Jones do now with the move to heavyweight. And that could be kind of a fresh start here. But yeah, if you're talking about Max Holloway, the guy who wants to be the featherweight champion again, and I know he does, he can, play that even keel kind of mentality. Max Holloway kind of, not over investing too much, playing it very low key Hawaiian, but I know he wants that belt back. And if he wants to get it, he needs to beat Calvin Kattar on Saturday night.
It's crazy, right? Because, not all that long ago, we were having an argument about whether or not he was the greatest featherweight of all time. And now we're talking about, does he have to win here? It's just a must win. So, Nolan, I'll turn it over to you. Obviously, everybody wants to win their fights, but is this a must win for the future of Max Holloway?
I don't think it's a must win. It's obviously a very important fight. Like Mike said, if you go 1-4 in 5 fights, that definitely drops your stock down. But we've seen this before. We've seen guys, he'll always be involved in big fights because of his name value, because of the fact that he was in that conversation for the greatest featherweight of all time. Look at Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, since he lost his title, has had what? He's had an interim title fight, and then he's lost 3 title fights in a row, but he's still getting those opportunities. He's still fighting at a high level. So while this is an important fight, I don't think it's a defining fight, and I don't think it's necessarily a must win for Max Holloway. He's still got years left in his career.
Yeah, great points there. He's going to be involved in big fights no matter what. But Goze, what do you think? Can he lose here and work his way back to a championship fight again? Or, are we talking about this is the end of a title run if he doesn't prove victorious?
I think it's a long road back if he does lose there. I kind of like what the guy said in the sense that, yeah, he probably could lose this fight. He's always going to have a home in the UFC. He's always going to have interesting matchups because we'll all tune in when we see Max Holloway on a card. We're going to want to watch him fight. The thing is, within him, I think Mike touched on it, he wants to be a champion. That defined him for a very long time, guys. So this is the type of fight where if he loses this fight, we can't even go back and say, well, it was Volkanovski's style that got him, right? This is a completely different look in Calvin Kattar. So if he loses this fight, he's going to have to answer a lot of questions, those type of questions that come up of, has he aged overnight? Has he not evolved? He's going to hear a lot of that type of stuff. So it's a very important fight for him, but I don't think it's career defining. As far as the title goes, I think he could see his way back to the title, but it's going to be a hell of a road back.
Big moment for Max Holloway. I feel like this is going to be one of those fights where afterwards we go, well, of course. Either, he loses and we go, yeah, of course we saw that coming, or he wins and we go, well, of course. It's Max Holloway, man. It's going to be crazy one way or the other. So, all right, guys, looking outside of Fight Island briefly, UFC President Dana White recently said he's hoping to see Nate Diaz fight in 2021, but he admitted he's not incredibly optimistic. Now, it's been 14 months since Diaz has fought. We know he's only coming back for the biggest fights available. So sit yourself down at the table in that meeting. What fight would you put on the table to entice Diaz to get back in the octagon? We'll speed round this one a little bit. Let's put 2 minutes on the clock. We'll start it with Nolan.
Yeah, so going through the roster, there's a lot of interesting names. There's a lot of fights that would make sense if Nate Diaz was not Nate Diaz, but he is Nate Diaz. So you got to give him a big name and you got to give him a fight that makes sense. What about Robbie Lawler? Robbie and Nick obviously have history, and Nate seems to want to be fighting at welterweight. So let's roll with that one. Both guys need a win. Both guys always bring it. I don't think necessarily anybody's going to be shooting for takedowns. So kind of out of left field, maybe not the name people were expecting me to drop right now, but I can't say I don't love that fight.
Man, anytime you mention Robbie Lawler, people get excited. So, Goze, how about you? You got a name that makes sense?
Well, here's the thing, guys. When Nate Diaz fights, it's an experience. There's the lead up, there's the fight, there's the aftermath, but there's no fans really to enjoy all this. So what I want to do is I want to stretch Nate Diaz over a period of time. I want to put him on The Ultimate Fighter. I want to have him over a period of time where people can tune in and have fun watching the guy. I'm going to put him in against the loser of Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. If Conor loses, you're welcome, America. If Dustin loses, well, it's a fresh matchup. And guess what? You know this dude's going to show up, Nick Diaz. So it's 2 for 1 right there.
Goes bringing the props. I like it, man. You can't beat the Diaz brothers on television. Mike, what about you? You got a little secret, something special for us?
I actually think Goze is right on point there. I think the loser of McGregor Poirier would be perfect. Let's not forget that he was actually supposed to fight Dustin Poirier at UFC 230 before that fight fell apart. So there's history with those guys too. I know Dustin Poirier is not a big fan of Nate Diaz, and he wants to fight him at some point. So that could be a matchup there. Obviously, the McGregor trilogy, but let's not forget also the BMF title rematch if they want to do that. It was rumored to potentially be taking place like early this year, 2021. Didn't materialize, but those are fights that are always there. I don't think Nate Diaz is going to rush back for anything, and I think he's going to wait for the right opportunity. One of those could pop up. But if you want me to throw a left field name, how about Tony Ferguson?
All right, got a selection there. For me, guys, it's got to be the trilogy with Conor McGregor, man. It doesn't matter wins or losses, you know what I mean? That's a big money fight, big attention. I think that would get him off the couch. So I think somehow you put that together. We'll see what happens. Guys, looking at the women's divisions, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she took home the MMA Junkie Fight of the Year for 2020 with that epic battle with Zhang Weili. But right now, the former UFC champ said she's content just kind of waiting on the sidelines until the right opportunity arises. She'd like more money. Who wouldn't want more money, of course? But more importantly, she says fans are a must, and she really thinks a title shot should be on the table too. So what do you make of her comments overall, and is there an ideal scenario you envision for her first fight since March 2020? We'll put 2 minutes on the clock again. Goze, let's start with you.
Listen, guys, I'm feeling the former champion here. She's got a lot of clout right now. She had what was arguably one of the greatest fights in mixed martial arts history, let alone just in women's MMA. It's going to go in the Hall of Fame some point. So she has some chips to bargain with. But here's the deal. When we get to the root of the problem, she's had many title chances, and she's come up short quite a few times. So she has to be realistic. Dana White does need to pay her. She deserves it. It's a good message to send to the rest of your roster that if you perform this way, you're going to be rewarded. But you can't just hand out title matches just like that. That being said, being a former champion, I think her road back is very short, especially if she has a good first fight.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, she's been there and she's, certainly deserving of a big fight, but is it a title fight? Mike, I don't know. What's your ideal scenario? How do you see this thing playing out?
It's tough. If Joanna wants money and she wants a better contract, she's going to have to take whatever fight the UFC gives her. I think that kind of comes with the territory in that degree. And I think maybe you look at someone like a Tatiana Suarez, who we know is aiming on a summer return. She is someone who was trending towards a title shot before her injury. And I think that's a fight that makes a lot of sense. That's someone the UFC is also wanting to build. She beats Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's right there. As far as the title goes, I mean, it's a tough spot for Joanna. I think she obviously has 2 losses to Rose Namajunas, who could potentially become the champion once again soon. She has the loss to Zhang Weili, and obviously that's a fight they could run back at any time. But is it a fight that, if she loses again, she's in a really, really tough spot. So I think really it depends. What does she want more? The belt? Does she want more money? That's the thing she's going to have to judge. If she wants more money, she's going to have to probably take on a really tough fight, as I said, like a Suarez. If she wants the belt, there's some other things that come along too. There's a lot of upside with being the champion. So maybe that money she wants could come along with being the champion again. So interesting spot for Joanna, I think.
Yeah, it really is. I think the interesting thing to me is that she definitely wants fans to be in the building. So that means, I guess, time is on her side. There's not going to be a rush. So I guess we can kind of let this title picture play out a little bit. I do hope they can get things worked out with Rose and we can get that fight with her and the champ. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And then we just see where we go from there. A lot of fun fights to be made in the strawweight division. So, guys, we did have a great holiday break from MMA. I know we all enjoyed a little time off, but we are back to action now. And the UFC's third trip here to Fight Island has 3 full cards. We know, win or lose, Conor McGregor is going to be the biggest story coming out of it. But what else is going to make waves out of these 3 cards? We got it all packed together in a little 8-day span. So give us one big, bold prediction for this 3-event span, and we'll start with you, Nolan. 2 minutes on the clock. How about it?
For sure. Yeah. I think that the kind of something that could occur here, right? It's very reminiscent of Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald on UFC 189 back in the day. Everybody was hyped about Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes or Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, but that co-main event stole the show. And I'm kind of getting that vibe coming into this one too. I know Michael Chandler's debut perhaps has a little bit more of a little more eyeballs, a little more people talking about it, but I think him and Dan Hooker could steal the show, man. I mean, that's a phenomenal fight. Seeing Michael Chandler compete against one of the best in the UFC, kind of a dark horse in that division in Dan Hooker, I think those guys, even though it's 3 rounds, I think they could really steal the show where at the end of the night, maybe we're talking about them as much as some sort of big knockout or submission in the main event.
That could be an absolute barn burner. Goze, you got anything for us?
All right, you said you want bold. The loser of Carlos Condit and Matt Brown will never fight again. Listen, guys, those two people, they have more violence combined than a Rambo sequel or an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Those guys are going to meet in the center of the cage. They're going to bite down on their mouthpiece, and they're going to swing for the fences. And whoever loses that fight, and maybe even the winner, might not be the same, because we've seen those guys fight like this tons of times. But they're a little older now. I feel like the loser of that fight, we will never see again in the cage.
Bold and sad, but certainly not impossible. Let's see how it happens. Mike, make it quick for us. Give us a bold prediction.
I don't know how bold it is, but last time we were here in Fight Island, or you were here in Fight Island, John, Amanda Ribas kind of stole the show with her victory over Paige Van Zandt. I think we see something similar. We were just talking about the strawweight division with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think Amanda Ribas is a future champion in that division. Marina Rodriguez, a very, very tough fight for her, but I'm very high on Amanda. I think she's got it all, and I think she's going to be someone who's going to be the future of that weight class. On the Conor McGregor undercard, she said herself she wants to steal the show. I don't know if she's going to do that, but I think she's going to be someone we're talking about.
Bold prediction there. She could make waves again. You know what? I'm going to throw mine out there. I think Michael Chiesa picks up the biggest win of his career and ends up fighting Khamzat Chimaev in the future. Something's going to happen with that fight with Leon Edwards. It's cursed. I'm making a bold prediction there. Something's going to change it up. We'll see how it all plays out, guys. Listen, like I said, we had that break. Now we're back to action. I know we're all excited for live fights. We will be covering it all here from UFC Fight Island. And of course, we'll talk about all the fallout on Spinning Back Clique.